Welcome to the Construction Pals podcast, brought to you by Blue Tape, your source for the latest in the construction world. Hard hats off, headphones on, and let's get started.
And I'm your host, Rick Butler from Blue Tape. Our guest today is Matt DeBarra, owner of the Contractor Consultants. In this episode, we talk about the importance of financial savvy in the construction world, especially when it comes to cash flow and trade credit. Matt, how you doing, man? Glad you're here. Appreciate you being on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rick. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, we are too. I'm looking forward to learning from you myself, and then being able to have folks glean your expertise. So tell me a little bit about that in terms of expertise, your background. Well, start with you. Just you as a man, you as a person. Where are you? Kids, family, wife, dog. Tell me a little bit about you, man.
I did it backwards. I had the kid before the dog. I got a 1-year-old daughter. A little family. So very, very fortunate about that. And I think that's where a lot of my motivation comes from. But my start in construction specifically was with these two hands right here. My family comes from a long lineage of construction. We've been in the industry 103 years now, so 4 generations. I'm the 4th, and started from the ground up. So great grandfathers came here from Italy. They built their homes from the ground up and started working for neighbors. And I started from a young age. I started actually first day I was 9 years old on the job. My dad wanted me to start younger, and my mom's like, he's too young. And then I was a kid, I had a lot of energy, and she's like, fine, take him. Started picking up trash on job sites, working with dad, and then really quickly learned how to run crews, predominantly masonry and concrete, but we did a lot of other things too. But that was what we enjoyed and did most of. And now I run the company here in Los Angeles, grew the business, and I've done a lot of exciting things along the way.
So I was going to say, what part of the country are you in, and where did you get to do all that, be on job sites? Was it all in the Southern California area?
A lot of it was on the East Coast. So I grew up outside of Boston. And so that was really where the roots were established. I went to a vocational high school. So I was bricklaying while most kids were tossing a football or kicking a soccer ball. And so that was really, I was fully immersed in the business. I used to, every other week, we would do what we call shop. So I was laying brick and block and stone. And then the summers I was working with my dad. So I was working whatever it is, like 8 months out of the year, even in high school. Because of the alternating weeks during the year, plus the summer months. So, I was running projects, 6, 7, 8 people on our team at, 15, 16. My dad would leave me with a set of plans. He'd be like, all right, you figure it out. I'm going to the next one, and I'll stop in at 3:00. And that was how he was. He was just as much as you could handle. And it certainly made me a better person because of it.
I bet you got some great stories, like some old salty, guys that out there on the project, so old salty Bostonians, hey man, whatever, the whole Boston accent. I bet you had to grow up fast in terms of leadership.
You did. And the hardest part is melding the old with the new, right? Because a lot's changed nowadays. But where I grew up, I remember I was up on probably 6 or 7 frames of scaffolding. So we're up 60, 70 feet in the air. And I'm dumping the mortar we used mortar boards at the time. So dumping it, the mason, my dad had puts his trowel in it. He goes, this, and he just flips it over. Doesn't look below anything. The thing drops 70 feet, splashes everywhere. I got to go carry new buckets. That was the industry 20 years ago. That's what you had. And now it's certainly different. We care a lot more about, longevity and how people feel and safety and some of those things. But boy, the early days were something different.
I'll bet. I bet your hands are still feeling the calluses.
A little bit.
So in terms of like contractors, consultants, your expertise and basically paying it forward from what your dad did for you, what was the impetus of getting started to help more people, not just on the job site, but helping folks, build their business? Tell me the impetus, the progression that went there, Matt.
Yeah, so right around 2018, I felt like I was on top of the world. Business was great. I had at the same time I was doing couple celebrity homes. So people I watched on TV, I'm working at their house. I'm doing some commercial work. I'm doing government work. So I have this business. It's grown so much. We're in 3 verticals: residential, commercial, and government work. And I felt like you couldn't get any higher. I was like, this is the American dream that my great grandfathers wanted when they came over to this country. Like, this is what they worked for, and we did it. And right around 2018, same thing. At the pinnacle of all of that, we had a hiring issue. We just couldn't hire, and I was ignoring it. I was so sales focused, right? We were closing these deals, the relationships, the accolades of the company, and I wasn't paying attention. My management team was like, "Hey, Matt, we don't know if we can staff these projects. We're having trouble finding people." I'm like, "We'll just post another ad on Craigslist. Post another ad on Indeed." What do you mean? Because we always knew where to get people, and it just came to a boiling head at that time. And I remember being brought into a meeting. My managers brought me in this meeting, and they were like, "Matt, we need you to come in here and see this." Big whiteboard, right? On one side was basically all the clients that were canceling agreements. Name, price. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of work. The next column was all the jobs that were running over schedule. And what prompted this meeting was somebody called in, somebody was late to the job site, like an hour. And I was like, well, you know the deal. Look at the handbook. It's third time they got to go. We've done our escalation process. And they're like, well, let me explain to you what's going to happen if we let this person go. And that's what prompted that meeting. I left the meeting losing about $700,000. And I was like, it was one of the lowest points in my life. And shortly thereafter, I found out I had a daughter on the way. So I certainly wasn't in my highest, highest morale. And anyone who has kids can probably relate to how that changes your life. And so at that moment, I said, you know what? I need to figure out how to solve this labor issue. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do, because I had the brand, I had the sales, I had the company, I had the passion, I had, a good team at its core, but we couldn't grow. And every time we tried to grow, we'd bring people in and they weren't the type of people that fit the culture, and we had no control. They show up late and they're like, what are you going to do? John showed up late yesterday. You didn't do anything to him. So we lost control. And I set out on this wild journey of basically, I called my bookkeeper. I said, what's the most amount of cash I can spend without, sinking the ship? She gave me the number. I put it in an account. I'm like, I'm going to spend all of it if I have to. And I just went on this journey. I booked consultants, seminars, hiring. I had at one time probably 40, 50 recruiters working. I became obsessed with what actually works, because I felt like if you can't control growing your team, you have no true control of your business. You can't enforce your culture, number one. Number two, you can't take on and grow more projects. It was such a constraint. And I'm fortunate enough to say that, I spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and I found little nuggets. I found little things. Oh, this works over here in big tech. I could take that idea. Oh, this is something my grandfather taught me that I stopped doing. Let's use that. And I basically came up with the help of our team, a system, how to find, vet, hire, and retain people. And we put it in a course, and the company really, it grew out of necessity. I just did it for me. And then I helped those contractors that I grew up with that I knew really well. And then it just grew into a system, and I had to put it together because Marjorie, my other half, was like, look, you can't be going to coffee shop Saturday and Sunday and just, you got a baby now. So that she's like, you got to find a way to get this information out to your friends, your contractor friends, without, spending 4 hours sitting with them every Saturday, Sunday, because we got a little family here. So that's kind of the impetus and the trajectory.
Wow. So, I mean, taking a $700,000 haircut was an eye opener, to say the least. I got a saying, life isn't what happens to me, it's what happens for me. And if you look at it as an educational or a process, I talk to so many people, Matt, that, hey, everything's fine. I just think that's the death of progress. Everything's fine. We're okay. We've been doing it this way forever. And it sounds like you took that $700,000 haircut and it was broke. You went and fixed it. You actually put your nose to the grindstone and did something about it.
Well, I built the company with my dad, my own two hands, right? So I was like, I'm going to be the generation. We took a lot of pride in our work and our reputation. My grandfather sat me down at 9 years old and he said, listen, kid, before you go out in the field, I want to tell you two things. Number one, if you want to get rich, go into finance, not construction. You got to love this stuff. Number two, I'll never forget this, sat me down on the couch. Number two, he said, honest day's work for an honest day's pay. You'll never retire off one customer. He said, if you can remember these two things for the rest of your life, you'll always do well in this business. And here I am now, I got a family on the way, family, and it's really my time to shine. We're at the pinnacle, and I'm like, I could be the one to ruin this deal. Like, I could be the one. I did 3 years. They came over on a rickety boat, to build this thing, and I'm the one. So I took it seriously. I I went out and I'm fortunate and very very fortunate to say we ended up with a good result, but it wasn't always clear waters.
Yeah, no. I hope everybody that's listening are taking notes, because I think this is about to even get better. So, I like your style, Matt. You go point one, point two, point three. So y'all listening, get ready to take more notes here. So let's speed up 5 years. 2023 as we speak right now. What do you see in the construction industry? Put your crystal ball hat on, and what are you seeing in that crystal ball for the folks here in 2023 and for the rest of the 10 months that we've got here in this calendar year?
Yeah, this is all I think about. So this is my favorite question. You don't want to take me to a cocktail party because I got nothing else to talk about. But I'm good here.
Don't worry, I won't. No. I got other things on my mind at a cocktail party. Let's don't do that. Let's keep it to the podcast.
Yeah. No, that's all. This is all I know.
Yeah.
I think the construction industry. So look, I'm very fortunate. I started in this business at what I think was the best time, right? I started when there was no internet. There was barely cell phones. The only advertising decision was the Yellow Pages. That was my dad early on. So I've seen the progression. So I have a good kind of point, a good data point where I saw what we called the old timers. My dad would be like, "Yo, go train with Joe. He's an old timer." That's what I used to say. So I saw all that, right? Joe's he was in his late 70s when I was, 10 years old. So, I mean, you think where he learned and what he had, and that was 20 years ago. He'd be 90 and change today. So I saw that and I can see where we're going. And what I think is the biggest thing in construction right now, labor shortage, one of the biggest problems. I think the need to really let's look even higher level. It's the need to modernize and change. The construction industry in a lot of ways, I think, has lagged other industries. And I think we are gonna in the next few years go through this shift. We're gonna be forced to. There's AI, there's the distance now between where we are relative to other industries is becoming so big. It's like an elastic band that's stretching. And I think we're going to snap into that. So labor shortage and what you can do there. I think it's no longer who controls the work. It's who controls the team, right? That used to be who controls the work. The GC is like, "Hey, I got work. You don't want to do it? See you later." Now it's who has the great team, the great culture. That's what a lot of, I talk to a lot of venture capital companies. They're like, "Look, we're doing strategic buyouts. We don't care how much work you have. We don't even really care about your brand. We're buying companies for people." When I heard that, I was like, okay, something's changing. I think on the cash flow side, I heard a saying, it was a mentor of mine. He said, businesses don't go out of business because they run out of money. They go out of business because they run out of cash. And I thought, wow, I didn't know that. I had to go out. I'm a field guy at heart. I grew up in the field, so I had to go elsewhere to learn all these things about business and, how to read a balance sheet and how to run, the financials of a business. And I remember him telling me that. And so I think modernizing our cash flows, modernizing our marketing and our CRMs and how we reach clients. But I think it all stems from a need to lift and become more modern, to use technology, and to think different. I think construction is one of those things where we get stuck in our ways sometimes. I'm guilty of it. I have the same trowel I used for 20 years. I still have the same darn thing. Good luck switching me to a different brand. You'll never do it, right? But there's certain areas in our businesses where I think we really need to take a hard look and say, it's not a necessity right now, but it will soon become that. I saw that with the Yellow Pages, right? It was like, well, I don't need to. I'm still getting clients from there. I'm still getting clients. And then it was like, boom, websites take off. And it's like, if you were in the Yellow Pages and you didn't have that head start, you were struggling. And I've seen that time and time again, that pattern be repeated in construction.
So let's land on all great points. And I hear those, and I think you're right there at the forefront of seeing it and feeling it. But let's land on, I believe it was your second point, modernizing cash flow. Explain that a little bit, and tell me what that looks like in your view as you're communicating that to a business, a contractor, a supplier, etc.
Well, I think, I grew up, right? My grandfather lived through the Great Depression, so he taught me a little bit about money from his lens and the importance of having cash and liquidity. And then I saw that with businesses as I got older and understood business, and how it works. The financials are the language of business, right? And cash is the fuel. The car is no good without fuel. And so really understanding, when I went from primarily a residential model, which cash flowed, right? We show up, we get a check, to a commercial model, which was net 60 or net 90, or government work, which is net whenever, right? Oh, we didn't get the pay app this month. We're sorry. Joe's out, whatever the case may be. It was understanding, oh, there's an issue here. If I don't, number one, understand my cash flow, meaning how much cash is going out relative to how much is coming in a duration of time. So forecasting. So in the next 30, 60, or 90 days, what projects do I have? What cash am I outlying? Specifically labor and materials are the big ones for us contractors. And then how long is it going to take for that money to come in? Because if I'm paying $1 out and I'm only getting 50 cents back each month, there's a problem here. More is going out than is coming in. And so I was able to understand that. And I think if us contractors spent more time, cash is leverage, especially now in this current climate, because frankly, I don't think the banks want to lend. I don't think that they want to lend. I've seen, I saw when COVID happened, lines of credit get frozen. I saw contractors panic. And so it was just another reminder of managing your cash flow and how important that is, because it also, there's two parts. One is cash flow as it relates to your business and your function. But the other part is, I think cash flow, if you manage it well, makes you more attractive as an acquisition, because your business is kicking off cash, which is what investors want. They don't want profits. They want cash. Cash is in your hand. Profits are theory. You can profit money and have no cash in the business, right? It can be sitting all on your AR sheet. Oh, I profited $1 million. Well, what's your AR? Oh, it's $1 million. So you have no money in your account right now? No, I don't. But I made $1 million. Well, that feels great, right? But if the money's not in your account, how are you making payroll next month? So I think it's important for investors. And then the last one is, I think it's a growth advantage for you as a contractor, because you have the ability to invest when others might not. So if you have that nice cash reserve, or you're able to manage your cash flow, you can spend money on hiring. You can spend money to acquire customers when other contractors might have to contract.
So let's take this down to a granular level and give some tips. I'm a contractor, been in business for a little over a year, got a 4-man crew. At any given time, we've got 2 projects. Marketing, Facebook must be doing well because I'm getting a lot of calls. But I'm just stuck in that 2-project zone. I want to see that go to 4 or 6. I want to, 10x it. I've got ambitions, but it's me in a year, 4-man crew, stuck in that 2 projects and really can't expand. Give me some ideas, like where I can go. I need more supplies. I need more materials, because like you said, $1 is going out and only 50 cents, maybe 25 cents is coming in. Give me some. All right, here you go, Rick. It's Rick Truck and the 4 guys. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things, just fundamentals that never go away. One is try and do work that cash flows right away. Right, try and negotiate those terms. Hey, I show up, I want to check, or I want to check after the first week. You can't always do that, right? I mean, that's a pipe dream. I have some commercial clients that we can, but it's sub 5%. But that's one thing you want to aim towards. So, and if you can't get it right away, negotiate the most favorable payment terms for you, is one thing. The second thing I would do is like what you do on your end is I would basically try and leverage the materials, because it's a physical item. Right. So you're more likely to get debt on those materials than you are, say, payroll or working capital or those things, because they're not tangibles. Like, you can lean a project for materials. It's much easier than it is to chase down payroll money. So I would look at leveraging debt on my material projects. I'd look at that for sure, which makes up typically 30 to 45% of a project scope. So I'd look at, working with you guys. I mean, what you do is a huge tool. I mean, we recommend that, because you need the ability to manage the cash flow to then reinvest in hiring and payroll and all these other things. And it's, if you go and try and get working capital or even lines of credit, they're great. But the problem with them is that it's not job specific, and it's not always tangible. I see a lot of contractors rely on lines of credit. COVID was a great example of a concern there because they relied on it and they were like, hey, we're pulling your line of credit. It's like, but that's the lifeblood of my business. It's like, well, not anymore. But if you're basing it around your materials, here's the benefit. Those materials don't change, meaning it's a part of the job. So nobody's pulling that, right? You can go, all right, I've sold this project. Here's the materials that I have. I buy it from my supplier, and I want to get that money back from those materials as fast as possible. And it's easier to do than getting it for, say, payroll or some other kind of less tangible costs.
So let's go back to my imaginary business and some of the nuggets that you just threw out. All I know is the local bank. Maybe it's a big branch, maybe it's a local branch. So I think bank. I think line of credit, that type thing. What's the difference? And you even said it, banks are getting more hesitant to lend. What's the difference between line of credit, going to my bank the way I think, that I pass on the main street every day, and trade credit? What's the difference of utilizing those two things? If you could delineate line of credit and trade credit, from a financing company.
Yeah, so contractors have typically three main ways of utilizing debt, if you will, or getting access to cash or money. One is credit cards, right? One is a line of credit, and one is trade credit. So credit cards are dangerous. We know why, because if you think you can pay it off in 30 days and you can't, you get hit with really high interest. So I don't recommend using a credit card. A line of credit is a bank saying, here's an amount of money that you can pull or have access to that you're going to start paying back. And typically you have a year term. There's different terms you can negotiate for how long that comes back. And there's interest around it. But the biggest problem I see with the line of credit is, number one, the inconsistency. The fact that you don't really own it. It's more routed in how your business is doing at that time. I have a banker friend, and he told me, he said, this is from a banker, very successful banker. He said, banks are great at lending you umbrellas when it's shining sun and it's not raining, and then taking the umbrella back when it's pouring. And so if you're really trying to manage cash flow over a long term, I would look at trade credit first. And the reason for that is because it's more associated with the project. It's a form of credit based on the materials of the project, which is a tangible asset. So everybody wins, meaning it's physical. When you pull a line of credit, you could go out and spend $100,000 on marketing or hire the wrong person, and it's gone. And so the bank is taking more risk on you. But when you lock into trade credit, everybody has lower risk. So it's more favorable for everybody. It's more favorable for you as the contractor because it's job specific, right? So you can work the cost of that trade credit into your job. It's more beneficial to the bank because they go, I would rather loan on something physical than give you money. You spend it on something that I could never see or take back or lien. So it's less risk for them. And then it's obviously beneficial to the supplier as well.
So let's go back based on what you just told me, and let's look at just, trade credit and going through a financing company like Blue Tape as an example. And my original premise is I'm stuck in this 2-project zone, and we're hungry and we want to expand that to 4 projects going on at the same time. It's a cash flow issue. You're seeing this as my playbook to get me started to get to that 4, 6, 8 and start expanding my projects. This is a good fundamental. You're the coach, man. I'm the player. Tell me, is this like the ABCs in my first part of my playbook here, Matt? Utilizing it?
That's what I would look at. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, the more you can associate things to specific jobs, the more you can channel your growth. Like if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, right? Let's go opposite for a minute here. They line item everything to a job. So they typically rent equipment, right? Everything it'd be like financing charge. I mean, I've seen the bid sheets on multi-billion-dollar projects, and it's fascinating because they had to do something right to get that big. And the big companies manage cash flow very well, right? Payment terms are always in favor of them. So what can we as the smaller companies glean from these multi-billion-dollar companies? Cash flow is extremely important. You want to get cash as fast as possible, and you want to do it in the most controllable way. So again, if I'm that small contractor, I've got 2 jobs, I want to get to 4. Well, or let's say I want to do one really big job. Let's say I'm working for a GC and they go, hey, I know that normally you're doing $15,000, $20,000 jobs. I just got a $200,000 job and I'd like you to do it. And you look and you say, okay, 30% material costs. I'm shelling out 60 grand. Well, you can try, you can pull a line of credit to try and fund that project. But again, there's the risk associated with, I personally like lines of credit as more of a fallback. I would go trade credit. I'd keep my credit cards for an emergency or things that I know I can pay off within 30 days. And then I'd have my line of credit as a fallback behind that. Is how I would manage that. But the materials are nice because what's the first thing you typically do on a project? Let's say it's a custom project. You got to fork out the money for that custom material before the project starts, and you have that risk. So if I can get trade credit, I'm getting that cash back into my business. I'm lowering the amount of money that I'm putting out early on, which is more beneficial for me. Now I can afford to do that. Maybe I couldn't afford that 60 grand if I didn't do that.
Is this also helping? This just popped into my head in terms of cash flow. Is this also helping with the slowdown in the supply chain, like doors and windows? I'm waiting for them to be delivered to the project site 3 months, 4 months out, maybe sometimes longer, but let's just utilize that. Then I'm not getting paid until installation. Is trade credit something that kind of can alleviate the supply chain? Do you see the supply chain getting faster, getting slower? Is it staying just stale?
I think it's compartmentalized, so it's very specific. There's niches like doors, windows that are really tough. Like concrete, masonry's gotten better. Cabinets I hear have gotten better. A lot of the basic finishes have gotten better. Some stuff is as bad, if not worse. So I think it's compartmentalized. But absolutely, I mean, we have a big project, a big custom fencing project, building a massive wall and fence, and we've ordered this fence. I'm going on 1.5 years now. We're waiting for it, and we forked out a lot of money. We had to pay 35% upfront on this project, so a six-figure bill for this custom fencing, and 1.5 years that cash is just out of the business.
Wow. It'll help. Well, your passion comes through in the way you communicate and you share, and you're so knowledgeable, Matt. Let's go back to I'm that guy. I've been in this thing 1 year. I want to stay in it longer. I've got a small family. I see growth. I'm good with my hands. The business side, my business acumen is not as high. Give me that last piece of advice, before we leave here and go, hey, this is what I really want to share with my heart, from my heart, to make you guys successful as you can be.
Yeah, I mean, I can frame it from the sense of what would I tell me,
Yeah, that's perfect.
Years ago. The biggest regret I have is not understanding financials. I used to rush my in terms of this conversation. There's obviously other ones, like I said, the labor issue, but in terms of what we're specifically talking about, one of the things I struggle with, I didn't have a formal background in business. I learned on the field. I didn't, nobody in my family was a business person, if you will, right? We were contractors. That's how we viewed ourselves, very, very blue collar. So the biggest thing that I think contractors need to spend time on, and I've seen it, that separates the small companies who don't grow from the big ones, is understanding your financials. When you understand your financials in your business, when you understand your cash flow, when you understand your P&L, when you understand the money coming in, the money coming out, where you're making it and where you're losing it. And I know it's not fun. I mean, I for many years, I would sit with the bookkeeper. It was a mess. I didn't understand the numbers, the columns. They'd explain it to me and go too fast, and I would get frustrated. But that is one of the biggest lever pulls at the end of the day. I mean, here's a simple way to look at it. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, okay, buys companies based off of, he's on record for buying companies and seeing nothing more than their financials. Let that sink in. Making billion-dollar deals off of 10 or 12 sheets of paper, right? How much money's coming in. He's able to see, my mentor told me, he said, financials are the language of business. That's your business talking back to you and saying, I'm hurt, I'm sick, I'm in trouble, or I'm very happy, I'm well fed. And we have to be able to understand those numbers. And so that's at a high level. And then when we understand it, usually the first takeaway is, and this was my epiphany going back now 7, 8 years ago, was, oh, wow, businesses don't go out of business because we run out of money, we run out of cash. And if I can manage my cash flow, meaning I can get paid more money than what I'm putting out, and trade credit's a great way to do that, then I have runway. I can make some mistakes. I cannot be perfect. I can grow, is what I'm talking about here. Because to grow is to not be perfect. Every time we've ever grown in my family business, we've slipped up. We've made mistakes. They've taken longer. We've learned. And so if you can do that, understand your financials, you will come to the conclusion, like every other contractor I've ever met, that cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. And then you'll start to prioritize it, and it'll give you a buffer. You'll feel more confident knowing that you're making decisions to grow based on the numbers and based on what your business can really do.
That's wise, man. I appreciate that wisdom. In terms of learning, getting more wisdom, tell the folks, that are listening, where can we find you? Where's the most, I know the social media, however that people want to, pick your brain to what you do. Let us know how we can find you, man.
Yeah, my email's MD, so M as in Michael, D as in Delta, at The Contractor Consultants, plural, or just head on over to the website, thecontractorconsultants.com.
See it right there over his left shoulder, The Contractors Consultants. Are you going to be at any trade shows, any big events coming up where somebody can maybe find you and shake your hand and trade cards with you anywhere coming up?
I don't even know. I just got back from International Builders Show and World of Concrete. I was in Vegas, I think 2.5 weeks out of the month there. I got some stuff coming up, but I'll make that on the social media there. I'll make sure.
Yeah. So you guys find Matt there at The Contractor Consultants, and again, I appreciate your wisdom, appreciate your passion, your communicative style of teaching folks. I could just hear it come through. So. Many thanks, and tip of the cap to you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. You prompted me with all the good questions there. I just followed your lead.
It was just teeing it up, man. Just like baseball. If you're a baseball Red Sox fan, I'll bet. But just teeing it up, and you just knocking it out of the park. So I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes like this. For more information on Construction Pals Podcast and Blue Tape, please visit bluetape.com.